Hey everybody, it's me. I'm back. It's Coach Pete for another edition of my vlog. I'm going to start this session with a statement, and it's really important. Um, the statement is this: it is a coach's responsibility to protect his players. I'll say it again. It is a coach's responsibility to protect his players. Okay? I'll hold that thought. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of a story. It was a while ago, maybe a month and a half or so. It was the beginning of a game, I believe 12, 13-year-olds. Kids started pitching. Anyone could see within the first 3, 4, 5 pitches, he was not right and he was in pain. And he kept shaking his head to his head coach. The coach was ignoring him and he proceeded to blame the kid's mechanics or what he was doing right or wrong on his arm hurting. He wound up walking a few kids. I don't think he got anybody out. The coach then came out and the kid was pointing to his arm, his shoulder, and saying, you could see he was saying that his arm's hurting. The coach proceeded again to ignore what the player was saying, went into some demonstration about pitching mechanics, which was really awful. I guess trying to tell him again the reason your arm hurts is because you're not pitching correctly, which is, it doesn't make a difference. If your arm hurts, your arm hurts. So the coach started walking away and he turned around and said, well, just keep trying. This just made me cringe. The kid threw to another batter, walked him, and just held the ball and stood there. Finally, the coach came out, and the kid was so frustrated that before the coach could get to him, he just tossed him the ball and walked away. This is sick. This is disgusting behavior, and it goes right back to what I said at the beginning. It is a coach's responsibility to protect his players. Now, I have no idea what happened before the game. I don't know the kid. I don't know the coach. I don't know the team. This is what I saw. And this kind of just leads me into the main topic of today's vlog. Everyone that knows me that I am a stickler for protecting a pitcher's arm. I call a pitcher's arm a golden ticket for many reasons. One is that every play starts with the pitcher's pitch. And for some who are good enough, it could be their ticket to big things at higher levels, like scholarships and stuff. So, but in all of my learnings, especially with biomechanics, we are taught to protect the pitcher's arm at all costs. As a matter of fact, that is the main reason that Tom House created biomechanics. It was to take as much stress off the arm as possible by using the entire body. When you do that, you give the arm longer life. It also allows you to pitch more accurately and with more velocity because you're using your whole entire body. The lack of information out there about how to, basically about safe mechanics, is frightening. As Tom House always says, baseball is a negative game filled with negative people, with misinformation at the highest levels. And you don't need to even go to the highest levels. I mean, I see that all the time in MLB and minor leagues and stuff. The lower levels, the younger coaches, it's like non-existent. And even some that do know that you need to protect pitchers' arms, they don't care. Why? Because they want to win, and that's it. For me, it's wrong. It's child abuse. What this coach did in the story I told you is flat out child abuse. It is knowingly and willingly putting a child's physical body at risk. That's child abuse. In my mind, you do not ever put a young pitcher's future at risk for the sake of a game. I don't care what the game is. I don't care if it's a championship game in a tournament. I don't care if it's a championship game in a league. You don't do it. If you are coaching just to win trophies and win games, I'm sorry, and I'll say it to your face, you're coaching for the wrong reasons. Your main responsibility is to protect your players. It's to grow them and develop them and protect them at all costs, not get a trophy or another win. With that said, I'm going to go into some examples of what I call pitching abuse and child abuse. I wrote these down over the course of last spring and summer, and I just picked out. I have a ton of them. I'm going to pick out a few examples that I had. I had an example of an 8-year-old kid throwing 70 pitches in one game, and he came back 2 days later and pitched again. An example of an 11-year-old throwing 88 pitches in one game, and he came back and pitched 3 days later. I have an 11-year-old who threw 105 pitches in one game trying to win a tournament. And an example of a 12-year-old who threw 118 pitches in one game, and then he pitched again 2 days later. What the hell is going on? I don't get it. And when I have conversations like this with people, I get responses like, well, they're young. It doesn't make a difference. They're young. That is the most selfish BS excuse I have ever heard. Okay? Anybody that knows anything about the human body knows that the body wears down, especially the arm, something as delicate as the arm, where Tommy John surgery comes into play in the UCL, starts to wear down at a young age due to abuse. That's when it starts. It doesn't just all of a sudden just tear. It tears because of abuse, and that abuse starts at an early age. It's the wearing down of the ligament slowly but surely until it tears and it breaks. So I don't want to hear that they're young kids and they're resilient and it shouldn't be a problem. It is a problem. Arm abuse to me is allowing a young pitcher to throw a ridiculous amount of pitches and then sending him back out there without proper rest. Period. Okay? There are 2 stories out there about me not allowing my young son to pitch. One was me actually almost going onto the field and taking him out of the game. I had spoken to the head coach that he was done. He was in a tournament and he had already thrown 65 pitches or so going into this whatever day it was, and he was finished. He needed rest. Head coach was not at the game, but he told the assistant coach. The assistant coach, who I knew was going to ignore the order, went out and tried to put him in. And I jumped out of my chair and I stopped it. And that's not the first time. It happened the year before where I saw a coach. These are 8 and 9-year-old kids. I saw a coach abuse a kid to a point that he was in so much pain he was in tears. And the coach screaming that I don't care how much pain he's in, he's going to pitch anyway. And then he tried to throw my son again. I mean, it's like, all for what? For wins in a tournament. It's an epidemic and it needs to be stopped. You need to be aware of what's going on. You need to be aware of what's safe and what's not safe. And you need to be that parent to put it to rest. These examples that I gave you are nothing. They're nothing compared to what's going on out there. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, brought his son to some sort of an evaluation, Team USA evaluation camp. And he had just thrown in a tournament and he had thrown a lot of pitches. And the guy who was running the show or the manager of the team or whatever said, well, we want to see him pitch. And he said, my friend said, no, he's not going to pitch. He just pitched X amount of pitches in 2 days and he's done. He's finished. He's got nothing left and I won't allow it. And this head coach said, well, do you want him to make the team or not? And he said, no, not at that price. So they evaluated him in other areas. He did really, really well. But anyway, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, it's insane. They don't care. And even those that care, I mean, those that don't care is what I'm trying to say are dangerous. Really dangerous because they're in it for the wrong reason. Um, for those of you that don't have a lot of information about, especially I'm going to say the Tommy John surgery, the UCL, I recommend you read a book called The Arm. It's a phenomenal book. Um, Incredible stories about abuse, about you know lack of information, lack of good information. One of them involves a 10-year-old kid. It's an awesome book with incredible stories. It doesn't really give you answers. However, it does leave you with use common sense, which unfortunately is not common enough. And that common sense is pitch counts with proper days rest, and that's just the start. In biomechanics, we have pre-game care, which is proper warm-ups, including the entire body and the arm. We have post-game, in-game care, which is proper safe mechanics and pitch counts. And we have post-game care, which is stretching, using ice, using heat, and proper rest. I'm going to read you the MLB recommendations called Pitch Smart. What this is the MLB's recommendation for pitcher ages, maximum pitches in a day, and then rest. And I'm just going to give you one because it's about the average age of the kids that I teach. And this age group is 11 to 12. Okay. Maximum pitches in a day, 85. Okay. So just hold that thought. If a pitcher throws 20 or less pitches, he can come back the next day. If he throws 21 to 35, he needs a day of rest. If he throws 36 to 50, 2 days of rest. If he throws 51 to 65, 3 days of rest. If he throws over 66, 4 days rest. Okay? That's just 11 and 12-year-olds. So they have it from 7 and 8-year-olds all the way up to, I believe, 18 or something like that. This is a simple thing that you can pull off the internet. Just search it. It needs to be used. I mean, even if you come within a few pitches of this, it's fine. But you need a guideline. You need to understand what's the point where your child or your young pitcher is being abused. This is baseball pitching, not softball. Softball is different. And there are great girl baseball pitchers out there that I know of, and this should still be implemented. I can't say enough. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, and I just don't care. One of the main responsibilities of every coach is to protect their players, not win games or trophies. You're in it for the wrong reason. Protect your players. That includes the pitcher's arm. Not knowing, understanding, or comprehending what abuse can do to the UCL, even at an early age, to me is a lack of responsibility. You should know what abuse of the arm can do. And again, there's two categories. There's those coaches who don't have the information, which is bad enough. Then there's the category of the coach that has the information but just doesn't care. And that to me is even worse. So you should want to be in the category of I have this information and I'm going to use it and I'm going to protect my players. That's what I have always done whenever I've coached. I implement these pitch count limits in my Venom teams. I did it all last summer. Pitcher reached his limit or whatever, he was done. I didn't care. Okay? This is the way it needs to be. This abuse will continue as long as parents allow it to, as long as organizations allow it to. I even know travel organizations who have pitch count limits and days rest in their handbook, and coaches ignore it. And when the leader of the organization finds out, basically he tells them, well, don't do it again. And then that's the end of it. Not me. If you coach one of my teams and you abuse this, you're done. Right? So that's the difference between me and most. We protect our players, period. I'm going to kind of switch gears here. A little story that I was very flattered about. I've been with one organization for a long time, and the owner was was talking to potential new customers for training, hitting, fielding, pitching, everything. And he called me over and introduced me and said that if you want your son to learn how to pitch the right way using something called biomechanics, which is pitching safely, this is the guy to go to. And he pointed to me and he said, I don't know anyone who knows more about biomechanics than him. If you're going to do it right. That was beyond flattering. And I thanked him for that. I mean, that was really cool. But yeah, I know a lot. I know what I know, but I learn every day. Okay. But just pulling it back a little bit, I know what abuse is, and I know what child abuse is. And when you put a player's physical well-being at risk, you should be charged with child abuse. Period. When you learn biomechanics and you learn the things behind it, like arm care and recovery, which is pitch counts and pitch rest, you begin to understand that it is the player's safety that comes first. This is imperative. I told you that I interceded in two. I mean, there have been others. I just gave you two examples where I basically just pulled my son off the mound, more or less, or said he wasn't pitching. There's been others. You need to do that. Just because a coach says it's okay doesn't mean it is. And I've been given this. This is the rules of the league. The rules of the league have got nothing to do with pitcher safety. The rules of tournaments have nothing to do with pitcher safety. They're so lenient, and they're lenient. Why are they lenient? Because it comes down to money. So now I'm going to upset a lot of people, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial. Tournaments and organizations are created to bring people in to make money, especially tournaments. Now, there's a few organizations that do have some innings limits and pitch count limits and so forth. But as you go into travel, which everyone seems to be going, to be told it's okay because that's what the rule is, wrong. That's not acceptable, because that rule is not created for protection. That rule is created so that more teams will come in and pay the fee to enter the tournament or enter the travel league. That I can guarantee because I've seen them all. So as parents, you have a responsibility to protect your young players, and as coaches, you have responsibility to protect your young players. If you're not on the same page, then the parent needs to take over. Be that parent. Any one of my students or parents needs my help, I'll be more than glad to help. Okay? Protect that golden ticket. I'm going to close really quickly on my Venom teams for next summer. I had someone mention something about tryouts and quality players and all this other stuff, and I said, so this isn't from ages 8 to 12. This isn't full-time travel. This isn't us taking the 12 best players available at an age group. That's got nothing to do with Venom. Venom is an extension of the National School of Baseball and Softball, whose main job and priority and goal is to properly train baseball players and softball players. Okay? So our success speaks for itself. You go to my website, look at raves and reviews, and they're all over the place. So this is an extension of that. I don't need 12 West players. What we want is players with athletic ability that can play, that have the burning desire and passion to get better, period. Um, and that's what we do. That's our main job with our off-season training program and discounted lessons and so on and so forth. So as I explained to people, I don't need the best players. I want the best players that are into this game and want to learn. I was currently reading an autobiography of my favorite artist, Bruce Springsteen, and he said something about when the E Street Band was created and what makes it so great. And I'm going to say basically what he said, that it is not the best musicians that make the greatest bands and success. It is the group of musicians that play the best together that make a long lasting, you know, historical band. And it's the same thing with baseball. I don't want the best players. I want the players that can play the best together. That's what being a team is all about, which is again is something else that we stress is camaraderie and teamwork and respect. So anyway, I'm going to end on this. The next time, just so that you know, I'm going to come back with safe mechanics and what that does to the UCL and shoulder and injuries. In my mind, there are three factors that contribute to injuries of the arm. One is just bad luck, small percentage. Two is poor mechanics, unsafe mechanics, and three is abuse. So we covered a little bit of abuse. So be aware, okay? Be that parent. If you need my help, I'm here. Okay? I'll talk to you soon. Coach Pete out.